Hi there guys, welcome back to rig making for complete beginners. In today's episode what we're going to be doing is we're going to be looking at the Wessex rig. Now personally I don't really use this rig very often, but now I'm fishing more with the kids, might be a good idea to use it. What it does is it enables you to fish one or two smaller baits at the top of the rig, and then like a running ledger system with a bigger bait on the bottom. So what I'm going to do is going to run you through the bits that we're going to need to make this rig. There's a couple of different bits that we haven't used before in the previous rig making videos, and then we'll look at making the actual rig itself, yeah, we'll take it from there. Right, so items we're going to need to make this rig are, first of all we need a main body, so we're going to use Grease Weasel 60-pound shot leader. For my snood lengths I'm going to be using Amnesia 20-pound, which is there. For my top hooks I'm going to be using size 2 Aberdeen Camazans there, and then for my hook on the bottom part of the rig I'm going to be using a Cox & Rule Specimen X in size 2.0. We're going to need one swivel for the top of the rig, which is there. We're going to need two smaller swivels for our snood lines for the top part of the rig, which are there. We're going to need a link clip, which is there, just a standard link clip. We don't need the tab on it, just that one. Selection of beads, got some nice pink ones there. And we're going to need some of these, which are crimps. Now what we're going to do is we're going to crimp the top part of the rig so it doesn't move, and I'll show you how to do that in a minute. When we're crimping the crimps, we're going to use a pair of crimping pliers, so if you haven't got any of these I'll recommend grabbing some crimping pliers. It's very simple to do. What we'll do is we'll take our crimp, slide it down a line, and then in the middle of the crimp we apply a slight bit of pressure to crimp, and then that is what we do. We don't want to over crimp it and go too hard, we don't want to cut through the line. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to start off by cutting our Grease Weasel shot leader for our main line at 1000mm, which is there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to tie a swivel onto one end, which will form the top of the rig. Just using a standard knot, 5-turn blood knot. Nice and easy. It's a very simple knot for beginners. Cut off my tag end, and that is our swivel knotted onto the top. What we're going to do now is we're just going to cut the bottom of the rig at a 45-degree angle. This will help us slide the components on. And what we're going to start off by doing is we're going to start off by sliding some crimps on. Right, so the crimps I got today say that they fit most lines up to 80 pounds, which is fine, so we're using 60 pounds, and they're 0.80mm diameter, which are there, so they're going to be perfect for what we're doing today. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to take one crimp and I'm going to slide that onto the line, like so. I'm then going to take my beads, we're going to place one bead on, and then one swivel, one more bead, then we're going to place another two crimps on, just take your time, it's not a rush. Then we're going to repeat the same process by putting a bead, a swivel, a bead on. Then we're going to finish that last bit with one more crimp, which is there. So what you'll end up with, if you've done it correctly, is that you end up with a crimp, a bead, a swivel, a bead, two crimps, a bead, a swivel, a bead, and a crimp. You know, nice and pretty like that. And what we'll do in a minute is we'll crimp that up, but don't crimp it up at the moment, we'll do that last minute. What we're going to do now is we're going to add our running ledger part to the rig. So what we're going to do is we're going to put another bead on, Then we're going to put our weight clip on, which is here. We're going to put another bead on, and then last of all we're just going to tie a swivel onto the bottom of the rig. Again, if you're here and you know how to make rigs, then you might want to opt for a stronger, more tighter knot, but as this video is for beginners, the knot I'm using is just a really simple knot just to get people out onto the beach really. Right, so all our components are on the line there. The end of the rig is done. What I'm going to start off by doing is I'm going to start off now by making our snood lines. So what I'm going to do now then, guys, I'm just going to make our snood lines. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my Amnesia 20-pound line. As we're making a 2-hook part at the top, I'm going to cut both the snoods to 400mm long. I'm then going to take the snood line and tie that onto the swivel. Just making sure that knot is nice and tight. I'm then going to cut off my tag end. So that is one snood line tied on. I'm then going to take my second snood line and tie my second snood line on, making sure I wet the line before I pull the knot to prevent any friction on the line. That was a bit tight. Again, cut off my tag ends. Make sure I dispose of those once I've finished making the rig. I don't want a load of tag ends lying around. Then lastly, on the bottom part, with my swivel on the bottom, all I'm going to do now is just going to tie another snood line, which is slightly longer. It's going to be my bottom snood. This one's 900mm long. I'm going to tie it directly onto the bottom. And that is my rig with all my snood lines attached. Got one there, got one there. It's a bit of a mess at the moment, but we'll come together. And then the last bit there. Right guys, so what I'm going to do now is going to attach my hooks. I'm going to start off by attaching 2 Camazan, size 2 Camazans, to my hooks that I'm going to crimp. So I'm going to take these hooks now, just attach those to my 2 snood lines that will be crimped. Right, I'm going to take a pair of pliers here, which I'm going to hold the hook in when I pull the knots tight. Again, same knot, used all the way throughout the process. Be careful, the hooks are very sharp. The last thing you want is a hook in your finger. Now hold the hook nice and tight in the pliers. And then I'm just going to pull that nice and tight. Again, cut off my tag end. And then repeat the process for the second hook on the second snood. Holding the hook tight in the pliers so it can't move, and just pulling that nice and tight to cinch down the knot, which will look like that. Right, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to tie my Coxon Rule Specimen X20, my larger hook, onto the bottom. Again, tied on with the same knot, taking the pliers, pulling the knot to cinch, and cutting the tag end. Right, so that's all my hooks tied on. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you how I'm going to crimp up this rig. I'm going to find the swivel at the top of my rig, I'm going to push the crimp down slightly, and then I'm going to proceed to crimp the first crimp in place. Noticed how I crimped it in the middle of the crimp, straight in the middle. That's the best place to crimp them to prevent any damage to the line. I'm then going to move my beads from my first snood to the top of the rig, which is there. I'm then going to proceed to crimp the second crimp, which is there. Nice in the middle, so then we have the first snood crimped in place at the top of the rig. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to take the top snood, I'm going to measure down and hold the line tight to where the hook ends, which is here. And I'm going to mark with my fingers slightly under that. Then I'm going to move my second snood crimp to that position. I'm then going to crimp that crimp, nice and easy. Then I'm going to move my further snood components down and crimp that into place as well. What we'll then end up having is the top snood here, which sits just above the second snood, and then the second snood will run down nicely. Oop. The second snood will run down nicely from the top and will sit just above the bottom of the rig there. Note at the bottom of the rig we have our sliding weight clip there, which we're going to show you how it works now by placing a lead on. So one lead clips up onto the clip. That then acts like a running ledger there, sliding nice and freely up and down. And then we have a nice long snood at the bottom, which will be presented on a running ledger with a slightly larger hook. So I mean, on the larger hook I'll probably be inclined to put like a nice big fish bait on, and then the two top hooks we'll probably use for worm, targeting smaller fish. So yep, this rig is absolutely fantastic. I've heard lots of people using it, lots of stories about people that used it and caught some decent fish on it, so I'm going to give it a good go and give it some more water time. I like the fact that you got the two top snoods at the top can fish for the smaller fish, and then the snood at the bottom can fish for a bigger fish there, so you kind of cover all bases. I'll probably use it on clean sandy ground. I'm not going to be taking it to any rough marks just due to the potential risks of snagging, just due to the the longer lines and more hooking points and things like that. So thank you very much guys, I hope you found this interesting. If you have, don't forget to like and subscribe, follow the rest of the rig making videos, and I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.